Hello internet, and I wanted to do this video because I have been seeing like the response videos to the SFF book awards and like the nominations that have been put forth and people saying which ones they want to read and which ones they don't, and I thought it'd be really cool to tell you sort of which ones I want to read and which ones I don't plan to read or I'm really not interested in, so you can like see what I think about the awards and which ones I think should win based on stuff, you know? You'll get it. Like, I just thought this would be a fun video to do. The BookTube SFF Awards just do science fiction and fantasies. They've switched up the rules a little bit this year. I was unable to participate last year, but I'm really excited that I actually get to participate and see which ones get the finalists on the shortlist. So let's go through the shortlist. First, for the science fiction books, there was Raven Stratagem by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is a book that I'm interested in reading, although I have not read the first book, which is 9 Fox Gambit. I have currently ordered both books, so I will be reading them. The second book on this is Born by Jeff Vandermeer. This is available at my library and I've placed it on hold, so if I ever get it off hold, I will read it. However, this isn't a high priority for me. I've heard this book is really good, obviously, since it's on this list, but if I don't get to it on time, my feelings will not be hurt. The next book under science fiction is The Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi. I have been reading this book. I got it on ebook from my library. I can't say how I feel about it. I'm not in love. I don't really dislike it. I'm just pretty neutral so far. So it's not like exciting me to read it, but it's not disappointing me either. So I'm going to try to push through, see if like my interest picks up a little more, if something really grips my attention. But otherwise, I think like I'm sort of seeing why it's on this list, but I'm not quite sure it's the sci-fi that I'm going for, if that makes sense. And then the last book under science fiction is Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel. And this is the second book in a series. The first book is Sleeping Gods. I have not read either of these books. They are available at my library, but they both have pretty substantial holding lists. This is a series that I have been really interested in ever since I heard about the first book. However, it is also a very expensive series because it has those adult book prices, and I'm not quite sure I'm willing to buy them, but I know if I put it on the waiting list, I might never get to see them. Like, I tried to get Mistborn. I placed that on hold in November. I just recently got it from my library. So this one has also a pretty long waiting list, so I'm not quite sure I would ever get it in time. Now moving on to the fantasy category. The first book in this is the third book in a trilogy, The Stone Sky by M.K. Jemisin. The previous books are The Fifth Season and The Obelisk Gate. I had started and read these prior to really learning about what was on the shortlist. So I have yet to read The Stone Sky, but I was planning to anyway because I really like this trilogy. So like that's like no question. Next we have The Bear and the Nightingale by Kay Arden. This is something that I'm pretty iffy on. It's at my library, but it has a holding list, and I already have a lot of books on hold, and I have limited spots, so I'm not quite sure I want to give it to this. I'm not really that interested in it. The title doesn't really appeal to me. The cover doesn't appeal to me. I don't really want to read the synopsis, because like nothing about this book just really screams read it now. So this is a book that like I wouldn't mind if I found it and then I would read it just to read it, but it's not something that like really catches my attention. Next we have Red Sister by Mark Laurent. This is not available at my library, and I'm not quite sure if I want to spend money on it because again, this is just something that like sounds good, but it doesn't really like click right there and spike my interest. I have tons of other books that I really like and really want to buy that I'm hesitant to spend money on a book just for the award season when I know there are other books that I would be more excited about, and this isn't available at my library at the time. If I see it, if it's cheap, I'll buy it, but otherwise I don't really plan on reading this. The last book is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This is the third book in her Shades of Magic trilogy. I have read the first 2 books. I'm planning to read the last book. I've already borrowed it from my library. I have mixed feelings on this. I don't really think it belongs on the shortlist, if I'm to be perfectly honest. However, I can see why other people like it, but given my contention, and if you've watched my videos and my complaints about certain characteristics, you'll kind of understand why I am not particularly in love with this series, although I am very curious. Like, it's not to a point where I don't like it, and I can still, like, go through with it, but I'm not in love with it, if that makes sense, right? I'm not in love with the series, but I'm still curious about it, and, like, I'm willing to buy and invest my money in it, because I'm just, like, it's that iffy border where it's, like, I'm pretty neutral. There's things I think could be better, but I'm not gonna diss the book. And now moving on to debut novels. I'm not sure I'm saying that word right. I can never. There's some words that I just can't pronounce. They don't work. This goes back to The Bear and Nightingale. I've already told you my feelings on that. Then we have King of the Wilds. This is a book I'm really excited on. I just got a chance to order it. I'm definitely reading it. I was trolling Twitter. The author had like posted something about a 1-star comment they had and was making fun of it. And then that 1-star comment was like, oh my gosh, like because of that 1-star comment, I knew this would be a book that I'm probably going to really, really love and enjoy. As like magic, it has like just guys, like people being badasses and doing like badassery. Everything about this book sounds like something I would like. So it's already ordered. It's definitely getting read. Like, there's no question about this. I have never been more amazed and more like excited over a 1-star review than I was over this one. Next we have City of Brass by S.A. Charborty. This is not a book I'm really interested in. I don't really know what it's about. The cover is pretty, but it doesn't appeal to my taste personally. And it's not available at my library, so I really don't want to spend my money to buy a book so I can read it when I'm not that invested in it. That's kind of how the theme is for some of these books. Now on to YA, we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I do want to buy this book, but I only like the UK cover, so I have borrowed the ebook from my library and plan to read it. Next we have Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. This is the second in a series. I own both the first and the second, but I've read neither. I want to read them on audiobook, and there is a holding list for the first book. Not the second book, only the first book. So I'm just like, people, read this book so I can read the audiobook. Like, just do it. Then we have Our Dark Duet, which I actually nominated. This is by Victoria Schwab. I own both books. I was okay with the first book. It was like, it had some things in it that I was just like, it could have been better if it went this way, but it was okay, like a 4 stars for me. And then the 5th book, I absolutely loved. I love the 5th book because I just really love that ending. It's gonna sound weird to some of you, but I just personally, I loved the ending of that book. I thought it was perfect for the story that was being told. So thumbs up to that. I'm glad that it got on the shortlist and more people are potentially going to read it. Now on to middle grade. First we have Witchwood by Tahera Mafi. I did read Furthermore. I was really in love with Furthermore. There were some issues, but like, I let them go. I really like Furthermore. I want to read Witchwood, so that will be something that I do eventually read. Then we have the Mundungus Chase book. I think there's a 3rd book in that trilogy. However, while I'm aware I could read this separately, I'm not going to, because I would have to read Percy Jackson. Like, in my mind, I want to read everything in order. I would have to reread Percy Jackson. I'd have to struggle through that lost hero arc with the Romans that I really didn't like, because I didn't like listening to those people diss on my boy Percy and not understand him. I was just like, it irritated. Like, I'll talk about my issue with that later. And then I'd have to read this Mundungus Chase series and the Apollo series so I can get the full story. That's like 20 books, and I'm not about that. I'll do it someday in the future, but not now. Next, we have Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This was a book that I was already interested before the shortlist, but then I just purchased because the shortlist, because I was like, well, if it's already there and I was already interested, I'll read it. 5-star book. It is great. Everyone should read it. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Like, everything in this world, oh my gosh, everything in this world, just like, I was like, this is such a cool world. Like, I want to visit Nevermore. Just little things that would be mentioned. I'd be like, how fascinating. that sounds so cool. So it's really great, 5-star book. Next book is The Dreadful Tales of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. I'm not reading this. I attempted to read her Passenger book. I think she wrote Passenger. And I'm not interested in it. I wasn't liking her writing there. I don't want to invest my time in her, so no. And then we have Short Works, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I nominated this, so I have read it. I loved it. I'm happy to see it here. We have All Systems Down by Martha Wells. This is a book I can't get out of my library, and I'm not sure I want to spend money on it. So that's a maybe. It does intrigue me, but not enough that I really want to buy it at the moment. Maybe sometime in the future I will, but not right now. I'm not that invested right now. And the last one is Binti Home by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a book that I had bought previous to this. I had bought the whole little trilogy. This is the second book in the novella trilogy. I've read the whole novella trilogy. Really loved it, so I'm glad to see it on this list, even though I didn't think of putting it down. So I really like this, and I'm glad that it's there. I am not talking about any of the graphic novels, even though there is a graphic novel category, because my library does not have a lot of good graphic novels. I know some people's library has Hoopla, so they get a lot of graphic novels, or they can go to their local library and they have a good stock of graphic novels. However, the one that I am near in college, zilch. The one that is where my aunt is, that has awesome graphic novels. However, I know I probably won't be able to read them. So I'm just cutting that whole category at the moment. I might go back and read those at a later date, but for the sake of the shortlist, they're not books that I'm really invested my time in at the moment. So that's just my reaction to the shortlist. I'm pretty excited and hyped about the ones that are on there. There are certain books that I already was really interested in, so I'm happy that they're there. There were some books that I've read or I nominated myself, so I'm happy they got on the list. And there were some books that I'm interested in, I wouldn't mind reading, but it's either or for me, right? So I just like that this introduced me to new books, and I'll tell you maybe in a couple months when they do actually are doing the voting and everything like that, I'll tell you how many I've read, because at the moment I think I've only read 4. I've read 4 of them. So I'm pretty happy with where I am at the moment, but I definitely want to read a few more, and since I got books in the mail, I'm going to read them when I get them. I hope this didn't bore you, and that if you're interested in FFF books, suggest other ones. Suggest the ones that didn't make the shortlist, or ones that you think I would enjoy. Suggest them down below. Even if it's not something that I originally just catches my eye, I a lot of times put it on my list because I'm always willing to take a chance, even if it doesn't instantly click with me. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.